So hello, welcome to the first part of the Lumo Director's Commentary. I'm Gareth Noyce, I'm the developer behind Lumo. I'm going to split this into parts. I've not quite decided if I'm going to show you all the secrets or everything else yet, and unfortunately all my achievements have been done, so you're not actually going to spot where those are either. But first part, we'll just have a quick tour of the first sort of 10-15 minutes, which you've probably already seen. Lumo's obviously an isometric arcade adventure game. I'll just start a new game here. Got two modes, adventure and old school. Adventure's the main mode really. It's infinite lives, the rooms reset, you respawn straight where you are. Old school's a really nice challenge, but it's hard. There's limited lives, there's no map, there's no save game. So you really need to know kind of where you are and what you're doing for that. But it gets quite tense towards the end when you're running out of lives, and I quite like it. It's also sort of how I've been playing the game, at least for the last few months. So let's create a new save slot. Pick a character. So with it being isometric, the biggest hurdle at the start is probably going to be the control system, because two of the modes you move relative to the room, and this is kind of like how the old school 8-bit isometric games worked. That's going to be confusing for a few people, I know. So you can kind of do what's more like a traditional camera relative, where up is up. I don't really like that because it makes all the jumps diagonal, which I find more difficult. So I tend to stick to the default one. And you should definitely try your Ken scrub moves in here, see if anything happens. So the intro's not really been shown. We held it off from the press stuff that went out a few months ago. You actually sort of start off in the real world. There's some ducks missing. And this is meant to be kind of like a retro event. We have a few of them in the UK. And people will bring their old computers and they'll set them up, and you can reminisce about the old games and play the old machines. And this is more of a nod to the guys from the Llamasoft forum, where I was actually a member before I was actually working in games. And one of them set up something called Retrovision. I think the first one was in 2001. That's where I met Jeff Minter and quite a few other sort of game developers for the first time, and that kind of started me on the path to actually getting into the industry. So it's a nice little sort of nod, thanks to those guys for that. Pimp My Spectrums by some guys called 8-bit. Demo scene crew very kindly let me stick it in the game. Paul worked on Crackdown and was with me at Climax as well, so really good guy. They do some amazing demos, you should check out their stuff on YouTube. The arcades have a little bit of a special meaning to me, at least. Balls Up was iPhone games, kind of like an Arkanoid clone. I released in 2009 for a bit of a laugh, just before we did Crackdown 2 actually. And Neutrino was a shoot 'em up. Me and some friends started making when I was about 16, 17, so it's like in the 90s. It was originally for the Acorn Archimedes, but we didn't really finish it or get anything working, as you would expect. But I still had a few of the graphics and stuff lying around, so that's my tribute to Neutrino. And Ua Kung Fu was kind of design inspired by Yi Ar Kung Fu, the old arcade and computer game, except mine was based with farmers, so you'd have scarecrows and stuff in there. Anything that's a good pun is basically good enough for me. In fact, Lumo used to be called Arse Over Tit originally, but my girlfriend didn't like it, so I had to find a different name, and that was just basically a pun on Head Over Heels, which was the first kind of isometric game that I played. So anyway, the spec guy is going to scan us and load us in. Slurp on my tea. Yeah. So here we are in the game. At the start you can't do much, but this is on purpose. I'm pretty aware that, you know, people won't be used to necessarily playing these old isometric games. And even for those of us that sort of grew up with it, it's been a while since we've played them, so The first few rooms are mainly about getting hang of the controls, so there's a big arrow there saying go left, so everyone goes right, which is a nice sort of trick if you ever want to do some confusing level design. Just put arrows in and everyone will go the opposite way. So we can't do much here, we can't get out because we can't jump, but we can push a box, so let's head back the other way. So there's no overt tutorial in Lumo, and I've tried to keep all of the text out of the game as much as possible. Can't get the book either because we still can't jump. I've tried to make, you know, everything fairly self-explanatory. A lot of people have been calling it a puzzle game because of that, and I honestly never really thought about it that way. I actually thought of it more of a action kind of platformer. But kind of looking at how people have been playing it, I can sort of see why people think it's more of a puzzle. I did take out most of the really sort of what I considered proper puzzly bits out of it, because I didn't want people to get stuck just because of a brain fart. And I kind of relied more heavily on the sort of platforming and exploration side of it, but it seems it's confused a few people as well, so as you can see, everything's kind of up, right, left. Just get the hang of the controls, try and bed it in. Most people seem to get the hang of this stuff really quickly though. It takes about 10-15 minutes and then everyone seems to be good. You can actually speed run this room, you can sort of get across, but and this is definitely not an agility orb, and that is definitely not the Ruffian Games logo with a bad hat drawn on it. Okay, so now I can jump. Ooh. So most of the secrets in Lumo involve kind of hopping out of the rooms or trying to break the game. There's probably a few instances where you can actually hop out of the room where you shouldn't be able to. We've tried to find all the collision bugs, but you know what it's like. And in this first section, all the rooms with a shelf in, that's kind of a clue. It's just telling you to try and get out. The ducks were really something I kind of put in to the start section just to make things a little bit more complicated for me. You have to kind of imagine how many times I've played this this section of the game. It's a lot. So I wanted something that was just a little bit more complicated, because this is really meant to be just like the movement tutorial. There's a few of the secrets I'll show you on this first section because I think they're all on the IGN video anyway. But the ducks have kind of worked out to be quite good. Certainly watching some of the editors on the press tour try and play. Some people aren't leaving any ducks behind, even if they spend half an hour trying to get one, so that worked out a little bit better than I actually expected. Okay, now we've got the book. So the book's mainly just your sort of progress check. Originally there were going to be some extra pages that you collected, which would be sort of like a scrapbook for how you were progressing. But I didn't quite have time to do what I wanted with those, so I ended up taking them out. So the book isn't quite what I was expecting it to be at the start, which is a bit of a shame. Now most people will miss this one because it's right at the start, but there's another cassette here. Anyone who had a Spectrum back in the day will probably be able to guess how many cassettes there are to pick up. There's also a shortcut in here for old school mode. It's another little secret, but you'll have to find that. Okay, now we can push the box and hop out. So JR and BD, well that's John Rittman and Bernie Drummond. They made Head Over Heels, probably one of the most famous isometric games. I think Equinox and Solstice will be the two most people sort of know or Night Law if you're really old, but there's a little nod to them. I salute you. You can sort of tilt the rooms a little bit, not a lot, but it's enough to give you a little bit of parallax, and you can kind of see a few secrets and stuff. Helps you get the ducks. So in old school mode, these maps actually turn into hats and they become your lives, so they're still worth picking up. And the map itself is actually a hand-drawn map of, I think it was Alien 8 by Will Overton, who also did the cover art and key art for the game. And his map, I think, was in a really early issue of Crash magazine, so you can't quite see it at this resolution, but when you run it at 4K, you might recognise Mr. Overton's little hand-drawn map from back in the 80s. And there's a lot of guys who've given me permission to put stuff in the game. You'll see some screenshots from old Spectrum games, or logos from stuff. These were kind of interesting. These were like one of the first things that I did. You can actually jump over them with quite a lot of room to spare. And originally I had them, they were about 1 metre tall, which is basically, as you can see from the rooms here, everything's on a grid. The floor shows you the grid and everything's sort of built to a grid. And the character can just clear, you know, 1 metre by 1 metre. But I had to lower them because everyone who sort of died against them thought that you couldn't jump over them. So it's a bit of a... you have to be a little bit careful from design point of view with stuff like that. What I thought people would think was obvious wasn't at all. So the game's split up into 4 zones. This is really just to give you a glimpse that there are different zones and stuff. And that's a gopher, if you're wondering. I took Gordon out, but this is still a broom cupboard, so the Brits among you will probably get that reference. So one thing that's nice about doing this now is I can, you know, have stuff like scrolling rooms and, you know, bigger rooms than the originals. So this is sort of the first, I don't know, puzzly bit, I guess. So you can't push this. It's not really obvious what it is you have to do. And if you come here, obviously this isn't working yet, so you're sort of stuck. But basically just jump off of it and you'll pick it up, and the next time you jump you'll put it down. Now there's a few reasons for this. Originally Lumo was, when I started it, I was just thinking it was going to be, you know, a mouse and keyboard game for PC only. And I didn't want to have lots of buttons for pickups or actions and stuff. But when it became obvious that I would be able to take it to the console, I decided to try and make it effectively like a one-button game. And this was really sort of, you know, to keep it close to the 8-bit originals. But it was also an interesting challenge because it brings up things like this, you know, how are you going to interact with things if you don't have a pick-up button or a drop button. And it was also because in Head Over Heels you had to do this kind of stuff quite a lot, and it got quite fiddly because you had a swap button and a pickup button and other stuff, and you know, this just was my way of simplifying that. So I spent ages on this. This was like one of the first sort of proper interactive rooms that I did. So you know, you can move them about and they're all sort of limited, and then you're supposed to kind of move this one here and then move this one along and go across it. And then literally the first time I gave it to someone, the dude came in and he moved it to here and he just went like that and then just jumped out, and I was like, oh my god, complete waste of time. So yeah, you're supposed to kind of use the jump box here, but you don't have to. A lot of the game's designed for speed running, so even things like this, you know, you can just jump between the gap. You don't necessarily need to use the stuff that's in the room to help you. Now this secret's in the wrong place. What I should have done is put it over here and put it up here so that you can kind of get out of there with a jump box, but I didn't. I didn't think about it. It was one of the early rooms that I did. So there's a couple of jokes in here. Shahid Ahmed used to work at Sony, he's now gone indie, wrote a game called Chimera back in the day, which was another isometric game, and he very kindly let me put a little bit of a homage to it in there. So we're going to travel up to a room out of Chimera, and the lift music is Hold My Hand Very Tightly by David Whistling Rick Wilson of Your Sinclair fame. I spent ages trying to get hold of him, begging him basically to let me use the music. I used to have this as my ringtone for a while. It's a Your Sinclair in joke, but I love it. So yeah, this is supposed to be Chimera. Obviously, toasters kill you back in the day. Don't ask me. So we'll pick up the spanner. That's meant to be a very poor representation of the player character from Chimera. I do apologise, Shahid. What a tune. Full version's up on YouTube if you want to listen to it. I do recommend it, it's addictive. Oops. Yeah, apologise if you can hear my keyboard through this. I've got one of those big clacky mechanical keyboards. So we'll use a spanner, we'll turn the steam on. I mean, the conveyor belts are going. Are we going to get a cuddly toy? No. So if you watch the Generation game in the UK, you'll know what I'm talking about, but the prize conveyor at the end used to have a cuddly toy on it every single week. So obviously my conveyor belt has got a cuddly toy on it. Occasionally, it's random. We might be unlucky and just not get any. So we go back the way we went a little bit. Are we going to get a cuddly toy? Nah. Oh, there we go. Hey, cuddly toy. So steam's all active. Bloody blah. Little shortcut. Right, you can speedrun this. It doesn't look like you can, but you can. Okay, that's the first section done. We've got our little key. So we need to head back to where that door is. So this is the googly eye challenge. This is from a conversation on Twitter, probably about 2.5 years ago now. I can't remember exactly what started it, but Mr. Rob Veron suggested putting googly eyes on some stuff. So I had a little box walking around and I stuck some googly eyes on it. And you'll get confused if you can't see you, which is kind of funny. So yeah, he's called the Love Box now. Just because it's little love hearts. There's a punk version of him later, who's spiky. It's kind of cute. go. So this room's confused a few people. Because obviously the brown ones are pushable. In fact, the kind of way it works in Lumo, which I thought would be obvious but people don't get, is that the boxes with the metal corners can't move. And the boxes without the metal corners, normally with the rare goods on, are either love boxes or they're kind of interactive. And this is a really old school kind of head over heels type. In fact, this might actually be in head over heels. This is really, I've seen this in a few games. So you can push it backwards and forwards and you can create some steps, but you can't push it to the side, which is what seems to confuse people. You have to imagine the physics are 8-bit and not modern day. So anyway, this is the first collectible. And yeah, the hollyhop's a red dwarf thing. And to take your brain to another dimension, play close attention, is obviously the prodigy. I should stop laughing at my own jokes really, because that was purely done just to amuse me. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up there. That's like 20 minutes. And we'll carry on the second part, which I'll probably release these weekly. So check back next week.